Hey everybody, Jamie Kelly here. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Season 3 of the Approximate Podcast. Be sure to join our Patreon for only $5 a month to see all of Season 3's episodes in full HD video. That's patreon.com/approximate podcast. If you're already a patron, thank you so much for your support. And to everyone who's tuned in, we love you all. And now, on with the show. Kitty! Fucking stop it! God damn it. Fucking cat. Yeah, you. Oi. Scrapple. Stop it. Alright, cut. We're done. Fucking cat. God damn it. Hey, Rachel, how you doing, sweetheart?
I'm doing great.
We had some time to talk a little bit before the podcast. It's been a very busy day for you.
Yes, it has been very, very busy. Pretty much up and out of bed and been go, go, go ever since.
What have you been up to?
Shooting.
I heard it was a lot of customs.
Yes, shooting the most customs I've ever actually shot in one day.
How many?
6.
Jeezy flips. What are people asking of you?
Luckily, my content is, I think, fairly unique where most of the requests that I get are kind of role play and me talking, which I'm pretty good at, so.
This is very interesting. What kind of role play?
Usually me doming them in some fashion with usually some kind of humiliation thrown in there.
Oh, do you get a lot of cuck type customers?
I do, which is not what I expected considering what the content I produce is. I would have expected to attract the exact opposite style of fan.
Oh, so is there like a discrepancy between what you prefer to do versus what people are asking of you, is what it sounds like?
Not really, no. It's just, my content that I create is very submissive, very, kind of that vibe. So I would expect that to attract more, dominant, those kinds of requests of, oh, I want to see you getting, in this position and in that position. And not really, oh, I want you to dom me. I was like, oh, okay, I guess. Let's do it.
I think a lot of times it's those kind of clients kind of project themselves onto us, and they're like, well, I want you to, treat me how I would want to be treated if I was in your position.
Yeah, there's definitely a very kind of living vicariously portion to that.
So it definitely feeds into like the femdom POV, yeah.
Well, an interesting thing, and this is very behind the scenes, you were telling me about a client, and Steph, we've come into contact with this kind of thing time and time again over the course of so many years. But you get that one custom request, and it's always that one guy. It's always that one guy that bugs the shit out of you. He writes a novel of what you are meant to do.
He's got a script.
He goes heavy with the script.
Yeah.
I've never gotten one of those.
Oh gosh, you're lucky.
So I have the other kind where
make it up all yourself.
They don't have a big script, but they have a script that logistically is impossible for a person with a tripod to produce.
That's the rub, is they're asking for a scene that is, for what you're charging, is well beyond your production budget.
Yeah.
So even if you did everything that they requested, you'd lose money on the gig.
Yeah.
And don't even offer the small or the low time frame ones, like the 5-minute ones, unless you're doing cell phone footage or something. Like, because it's not worth it. They're going to try to cram a 15-minute scene into 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of guys that just want to take advantage, and they don't understand, everything it takes just to provide them with a little bit of schmutz that they can jerk off to.
Oh, yeah. I remember I did have one custom, come to think of it, that it was very highly detailed. There was a lot of specific phrases or topics that he wanted in there. And, it got so bad, I had to break out my whiteboard and, have it behind the camera with, a list of all the things. And I remember, I usually go for about 10 to 12 minutes is what I shoot for. And I was at 10 minutes and I wasn't even halfway done through the list. I'm like, oh my, I was like, I'm not even really getting into these topics. I'm just kind of brushing over them and let's move on and figure out how to roll this into the next topic. And
With those, I've had those before. With those, I kind of just try to talk 2 minutes about each thing. Like I usually just set go like YouTube and put 10-minute timer or something like that. And every time I see 2 minutes, I move on to the next subject. And then in the edit, I'll just chop it down and fade into the next part.
Well,
yeah.
the nature of custom videos is that it is personalized. That's the thing. And I've been in this game so long that I limit like customization and personalization down to a very, some might call it cynical, but just I say your name. That makes it, that's kind of like everything like distilled. You want it personalized? Let me just say your name. That way nobody else can have it. You can't get any better than that. But if you're going to give me a script with like 900 things I got to do within the space of 5 to 10 minutes, it becomes a chore. It becomes a chore. And it also kind of reflects on like your customer's perception of what you do. You can tell like the customers that just don't think of you as a person or actual fans that realize what you do and just ask for that much, maybe plus their name being mentioned. It's a lot more fair that way. But there's always those customers that, every once in a blue moon, they just want so much, and it can fucking ruin your day.
Y'all think customs are hard? You try to book as a pro dom and get those freaking inquiries and those fantasies come in freaking in your email and stuff. Like, oh, I want all of this stuff done. And it's like 4 different fucking emails. And you're like, you haven't even paid deposit yet.
So for me, it was actually the first custom that was ordered when the new tracking, like I have like a whole like spreadsheet thing that keeps track of when it was ordered, when it should be due.
Get really familiar with Google Sheets.
Stuff. Yes.
Absolutely.
And it's one, as I mentioned, it's logistically, it pisses me off every time I read it because I know I'm like, I gotta, all right, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna make, like it just, even now I'm still like, I have no idea how I'm gonna film this. And like, it would kind of derail me for like anything else going on that day because I would just get so stuck on, okay, how do I do this? How do I make it look good? What angle should I be going for? And the next thing I know, my whole day's gone through.
Right.
And all I am is really frustrated that I've done nothing and I still haven't figured out this problem. And it's just, today I tried something new and it was not working out. Next.
Right. Yeah. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. It's okay to like stop and move ahead. An unreasonable request doesn't have to be entertained. It doesn't have to. I've done this, again, 17 years in this business as of August of this year, as of the time of this recording. There have been many instances, and I had to learn how to do this. When a request like that, it comes in, and their requests exceed my production budget, I'll say, I'll absolutely do this for you, but here's what you have to pony up for. There's my baseline, a fee, and then, well, everything that's that's required for me to do this scene, I'm going to make an itemized list, and these are the things you have to pay for. Otherwise, you don't get it because I'm not going to, it's too taxing mentally, and there's no room for me to be the kind of creative person that would make a good scene upon your specific request. You got to make them pay for it.
I feel very lucky with my fans. I mean, yes, there are definitely the ones that, you're just an object for them. But I would say with my fan base, it's a good 70-30 split, with 70 being the ones that are fans. And
folks that act right.
Yeah, and I can actually, if they request something, and even if the order is accepted, and even if I'm like, yeah, I can totally do that, and then I go to try to do it, and it's just, for some reason or another, it's just not working, or it doesn't look as hot as maybe they think it's going to look, or whatever. And, I can just go message them and say, hey, this isn't working. Are we okay to cut, or are we okay to maybe change this detail a little bit? And for the most part, they're usually very, very willing to let me do that.
I have so many questions because truth be told, for our listening audience and folks that are watching, we only met each other. What is it? Maybe 3, 4 months
Yeah,
ago.
about 4 months ago, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
We met each other on set. Our Stephanie and I's production company was shooting you with another model for, I think it was what, trans roommates?
We were filling in for trans roommates for Penny Pedals. Yeah.
Right. And from my perspective, it was a really cool scene. Now, I do remember that you felt you were having some problems on that scene, but from our point of view, from where Steph and I were sitting, everything looked amazing. You did such a great job.
After seeing the scene come out, and then of course, being able to watch it through all put together as opposed to, the start and stop stuff, that was a really hot scene. It
Yeah.
came together really, really nice.
Folks are jerking off to it.
I was, yeah.
Mission
I was-
accomplished.
As I always tell people is I can totally have the top energy. I like my top energy. Sometimes it's just hard to get the downstairs to come on board.
Hashtag trans girl problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Fuck hashtag.
So, that's really just the hardest thing to get over sometimes.
Yeah, we were remarking on that. Like the last episode we did, as of the time of this recording, it was yesterday. We had a cisgender girl on that mostly works at
Falcon.
mainstream, and it's the same across the board for everybody. We all have to deal with so much turmoil that happens between action and cut, and nobody ever gets to see that part of it. And that's the stuff that we have to live with. They get the end result.
Right. Right. Exactly.
That's
yeah.
our job, though. It means we're doing it good. If they saw all the behind the scenes stuff in the scene, that means we're not doing it worth it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, to date, the scene that I was the most miserable on set, I had the worst migraine of my life. I was having a really hard time performing because I was topping for the scene, and it was a struggle to get there. It took forever. Oh my goodness. But we got there, we got it done, and to this day, it's probably been one of the hottest scenes that ever dropped that I did.
And nobody would ever know.
Yeah, and I'm just
nobody
like,
would ever
man.
know that was like a really tough day for you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go a little bit hokey, because we're now officially 24 episodes in, and I seriously, except for the one time that we met a few months ago, I don't know you from Adam. So I'm gonna do the hokey question and get to learn a little bit more about you, and our listening audience and the folks that are watching will get to learn a little bit more about you. Where did you get your start in this industry? That question.
It's funny. I didn't know I intended to be in this industry. Thinking back when I was watching porn, when I shouldn't have been watching porn,
We all do.
I remember thinking to myself, I want to be one of those girls. Like, I want to be that. And I ended up doing it without even realizing and meaning to. I started on Reddit and Tumblr. I had no intention to monetize. I had no aspirations really to. It was just something I did for fun when I wasn't at work. And, kind of one thing snowballed into the next. And then I decided to monetize because of demand and moved to California, and I was like, this is where the industry is.
Before you go any further, I do this with most guests that start their humble beginnings story. I already can tell there's a lot left out. So I want to know, what was the last Joe job that you had? And was there any interplay between your Joe job ending and then going into porn to monetize?
What do you mean interplay?
Well, was there a sense of dissatisfaction? You're like, okay, I can't do the 9 to 5 anymore. I'm going to go into porn.
Gotcha.
Because that seems to be 9 times out of 10, so many people's stories. Was that the kind of thing that happened with you?
Kind of. So the job that I had, my last vanilla job, if you will, I was a dental assistant. It's a job that to this day I love. It was so much fun. I learned so much. I don't know what it is. I love teeth. I love them. I just find them fascinating. And yeah, it's a job I really loved and I was pretty good at. But unfortunately, the work environment was just, is toxic beyond toxic. I mean,
Really? The dental industry.
oh God, it's awful.
How so? I unpack this, please.
When you're in a job where there is one male at the top with nothing but females below him, it gets very, very cat and mouse. Very, how can I screw you to make him like me more? How can I, do this to get priority over the...
So I'm guessing, like, in layman's terms, and my stupid, naive, like, theater of the mind that I'm looking at this at. So I see a dude that is like the dentist, the head guy in the office, and then it's just like a bevy of female nurses, and
It's just a little
that's where the
shop of horrors.
misogyny comes in. Or-
So it gets worse. So there's the dentist, and then one step below him, as far as ability, would be the dental hygienist. And then below that is the dental assistant. And then you've got your front desk workers, managers, they're kind of a different side of the dental.
Yeah, the hospitality side.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got managers in the office
Right.
thinking they're hot shit.
Right.
You've got the hygienists thinking they're hot shit. The dentist who knows he's king shit. And everyone else just trying to get king shit's attention. And, oh, don't you like me more? Aren't I better? Aren't I the best? Shouldn't
Now,
I get the raise?
I come from I have no idea. Why are people vying for that person's attention in the hopes of what?
Like I said, getting more positive attention, getting less yelled at.
So it's not even a matter of like climbing the.
Oh, no. There's no... The pecking order is set in stone. It's more a matter of surviving that pecking order longer than the person next to you so that when they drop out, you get their spot.
Oh, so it's I'm hearing it's like pure drama.
Oh, 100%.
It's just drama.
100%.
Son of a bitch.
And me, I don't do that. I'm there to do my job, do it well, and then go home. Like, if I make friends at my job, fantastic, great. But that's not what I'm there for.
You're here to fix fucking people's teeth. One of the most important things
absolutely.
anybody
Yeah,
can
it's
do.
not like I'm not going to be like I'm not gonna oh, screw you. Like, I'm here to do my job. Like, I'm happy to be friendly and nice, but like, I'm not gonna go out of my way to be like, oh, why don't you like me? It's just like, oh, you don't like me? Okay, fine, whatever. You're in room 2, I'm in room 1. Okay.
This dude needs a cavity filled. Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, it's yeah, like I said, it's very, very toxic environment that I was in. And I mean, we're talking the kind of environment where I would be clocking out and in that moment, I'm calculating, okay, I have this many hours before I have to go to bed. And then if I sleep for 6 hours, that means I can get up a little early, have a few hours, and then I've got this many minutes before I have to be at work. I would be in the parking lot. I had to be in the building at 8:15. I'm sitting in the parking lot at 8 o'clock, and I am not going in until that clock reads 8:15. Like, I'm just dreading every single day. And, that's when I started my Patreon. Back when Patreon allowed our type of content loosely, which my content started so unpornographic, it's ridiculous. I mean, I may show the fact that I had a butt plug in, like, with a flash. That was it. And next thing I knew, I was making as much on my Patreon as I was at my full-time job.
Right.
That I hated.
Right.
And I was just like, why am I stressing myself out every day, killing myself, when if I'm making this much as a hobby,
Right.
how much could I make if I just did this.
Right.
For me, it was more of a logical step rather than I just can't work a 9 to 5. I need to work for me.
Wow. I feel there's a lot to unpack there because, the nature of the job that you were doing is very admirable. We're talking about healthcare. We're talking about taking care of people. And the working environment was such that, the drama took precedent over actually doing the work of fixing people's teeth. And then I guess it was just easier to do this, to trip backwards into porn.
Well, I wouldn't think of porn as
Did you
tripping
trade one thing for another, or was that even a thing that occurred to you that there's this ethical business that you're at, where you're helping people, but something about the system's broken, and so it's not even worth doing that, and it's more about, let's just get rid of the drama and make money by being a personality.
Funny thing about me is, like I mentioned, is when I got into this, money was not like, oh man, I can make so much if I just did that. I should just get, it was never about that. It was, it just happened to start, that I got lucky that the niche that I did of fetish content was very, very taboo among trans women. No trans girl was touching, except Natalie Mars. She was the only other girl I knew of that was touching, sissy fetish content. And now I was naive enough to think, oh, I'm just another girl. No, I'm nothing special. But yeah, no, I did it as a way to find more like-minded people like me. I mean, yes, making money was a bonus, but it was never the intention. For me, it was about meeting people and helping people.
It sounds like there was a greater calling that it had nothing to do with the job. And am I getting this right?
Yeah, like I said, I just kind of fell into it, I don't know if saying it's where I was meant to be, but
right.
I was in the right place at the right time. When I was at that job, I was in the wrong place at the right time.
We've heard many, many stories about people I keep saying trip backwards into the industry. Largely, that's kind of what it feels like. But you didn't necessarily immediately have aspirations to work within the studio system and be a featured star or anything. You were just going with what your guts were, however you could find money.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much it. As I mentioned, I came up on Reddit and Tumblr. Those were my two. I had huge followings on both. I still have my Reddit, but it's gone mostly inactive. And then, of course, Tumblr imploded itself. And that was where I got my Patreons, because this was OnlyFans had just really started kind of becoming the platform for sex workers. I didn't even have a Twitter. When Tumblr went down, I didn't have a Twitter. I actually made one a month before Tumblr went down, and it was scrambling trying to get everybody over. So yeah, it was just kind of one thing after the next. And then that's when the person I was with got a job that moved us to California. And I had always wanted to live on the West Coast. I visited when I was a kid. I fell in love with the West Coast, and I knew it's where I wanted to live. And so I was there, and I was like, if there was an opportunity for that, now's the time.
In the time that you've been doing this, have you had larger aspirations to become a person that's a model in the industry writ large?
100%.
Okay.
I definitely, and I think that's more my competitive nature coming out in me. Right now, my goal is just win an award.
Oh, really?
Just win one award. That's goal one. And then after I get that, then I set the next goal.
Once that sort of ambition kind of bubbled up, have you been doing scenes with quote unquote legitimate companies? Have you worked for the limited number of studios that we have to our avail in this industry or this niche. Have you worked with trans angels? Have you worked with transensuals?
I would love to, but
You've worked
no.
with Groovy.
I worked with Groovy. I've worked with trans erotica, trans roommates.
Right.
But believe it or not, those are the only 3 companies, and Shiny Bound.
Sure.
Those are the only companies I've worked with in the industry. Not for lack of trying, but yeah, it's one of those where I would love to work for trans angels, transensual, gender X, all that kind of stuff. It's just.
Do you think there's any kind of particular roadblocks that are standing in your way? Because I have something to say about that. I'm getting to a
think
punchline.
In this industry, you get work if you know the right people.
She's already skipping ahead. Yeah, that's the punchline.
It's a very who you know business. Yeah.
Yeah, if your ambition is such to, because essentially, it's just porn. Let's calm down a little bit. We're just entertainers, and I think that's first and foremost what anybody in this industry has to realize is we're just dancing monkeys to get people to open their wallets to jerk off at images and sounds of us. Let's make no mistake. Knowing that, if you can start from that point, then you can actually start to manipulate and move forward with your ambitions of working with studios and that kind of thing. It's actually not that hard. You're super gorgeous, and that's all that counts in this business. So you already have the goods, but are you taking the kind of steps to meet those particular ambitions to do more studio work?
I'll be honest, I don't really know what the steps are, so I'm going to assume no.
It's literally, I'll tell you, and this is across the board in all, in the entertainment business, and I've said it before on this podcast, porn performers, what we do in adult entertainment is the lowest rung of the ladder of the entertainment business. But the bread and butter and how you get things moving, insofar as you care about being an entertainer, it's all networking. That's it. It's a who you know business. Mm-hmm. You just have to, as you know people, as you shake hands, as you look folks in the eye, just have some goods.
A good thing to do is every once in a while, every 3 months or so, get you some nice pictures together, and do the porn casting pictures, the nude and the front, side, back profile.
Stephanie's great. She's coming in with the practical advice. If this is a concern of yours.
And then send them out to whoever you have connections with at that time with the companies and say, hey, I'd love to work, and it is a we'll call you, don't call us, we'll call you business, but they want to know that you're available. They want to know that you're there, and then they might not be checking Twitter. They might not be checking, all these other things or your OnlyFans or whatever. I heard a lot of booking now is based off of Pornhub numbers, so I don't know.
I have a 0 Pornhub presence.
That could be part of it.
I don't exist on Pornhub unless somebody else posted me.
Pornhub is owned by a much larger conglomerate, right? And that is they changed from MindGeek to something else.
It was
I can't remember.
It was MindGeek, and now it's fucking something else.
Whatever it is, the powers that be, they actually use for performers. They use the Pornhub numbers to see what the popularity is because, again, at the end of the day, it's about hiring the people that can bring in the most money based off of cost.
Yeah, of course.
You got to play the numbers. You actually have to take the time to get yourself inundated in the system and bump up your numbers with Pornhub because 90% of this industry, trans, cis, or otherwise, that's where they're going to judge you. The powers that be are going to judge you based on your popularity on Pornhub. That's
Twitter followers don't
it.
even mean anything too much anymore.
Oh, social media numbers don't mean dick.
Yeah.
They don't mean dick.
So, back around 2014, 2015, 2016, it was a little bit different, and they were going off of social media mostly. And then also, you would just send in pictures sometimes to these different places, and then they would just go off of seeing your last set, oh, your last set was really hot. You shot with Evil Angel or whatever. Well,
you're only as good as the last thing that you've done. And that literally plays into this whole Pornhub kerfuffle where the powers that be judge you off your numbers so that you can get hired by, well, Adult Time, which has a bunch of satellite sites that you could potentially work for. Literally, the company that owns Pornhub owns Adult Time, and they're only going to spend money on you and fly you out, or sometimes the money is given into particular producers, directors' hands. They want to make sure that they get, their money back on the investment they make on you, and that is purely driven off of your popularity, which is going to be seen through an omnipresent website like Pornhub. That's literally the whole reason it exists as far as their expenditure on the business end. If you give a shit about like being in like proper popular movies, that's a metric that you're going to have to pay attention to.
Cis girls have always kind of been judged on like Pornhub numbers. They've always been like, okay, what are you getting on Pornhub? Then around 2017, when trans started becoming a little bit more integrated into the mainstream industry and then crossing over Brazzers and all that shit like that, Aubrey Kate is a fucking evil angel contract model and stuff like that. They started judging trans girls off those same things too. So yeah, and the studio is never really where the money is at. It's fast money, sure. It's like direct money, but it's more the recognition that you get from it.
Shooting on a higher tier quality than, when I'm shooting in my living room or, something like that. So that's,
And also just being able to get on those sets and be, in that environment and, network with those people, network with more people in those environments. Yeah.
For me, like, my kind of goal is if I can work with trans angels, I've made it and I'm happy.
That's easy. I can just give you Tom Moore's number and recommend you, and you're
have
going
his
to be
Twitter.
in. Okay, well,
he's actually already told me to forward photos and something over to somebody.
Whatever conversation you had with Tom Moore, he gets hit up all the time. But this is a who you know business. If I particularly recommend you to Tom Moore, I bet you're going to get phone calls a lot quicker.
That's true.
This is because he and I go way back.
Yeah, we had him on a podcast not long ago.
And I've provided so many models for him just based off of my recommendation because of a trusted person. So we'll talk after the show, and I'll get you in much more direct contact with Tom Moore.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be awesome.
Yeah, because you already got the look. You're already hot. There's nothing to worry about there. So it's just the connection. That's all you need.
Mm-hmm. That tends to be the crux of it all, isn't it? It's you've got the goods, you just don't have the contacts.
Yeah.
Well, do you attend a lot of industry parties, or do you lend yourself to be available to industry parties? Do you go to the T Awards?
So I didn't go this past year to the T Awards. I did want to go. Fortunately, it just logistically it just didn't work out. I went to the one before the year before last, and I was with my ex, so I didn't really hit up any parties afterwards or anything. We just kind of went back to the hotel room.
Right.
I am trying to go to more parties and things like that if the invite is extended. It's hard for me because I'm really not a party person. So
No, same. Honestly, it's just more of like a seeing people I haven't seen before, or seeing like people I haven't seen in a long time. Mm-hmm. And like Trans Erotica is the one who throws the most porn parties out here I can think of. And
I've never been invited to one.
Oh man.
Except the housewarming party.
Oh, the last.
That was the only one. Yeah.
Well, I absolutely empathize. I don't have a lot of fuel for social interaction and party. I'm old, My party days are long behind me. But when it comes to working and making more money, you have to kind of see the lay of the land. And the lay of the land dictates that this is a who you know business, and it behooves you to go to parties, take yourself out of your comfort zone for a little bit for the sake of business.
Yeah,
shake hands, pass out business cards. As much as you can muster, the energy to put a smile on your face and look people in the eye for about an hour, 2-3 hours, and then go the fuck back home to your safe place. You've actually, that's the job. That's the job.
Believe it or not, at parties, you would never guess I'm as introverted or socially awkward as I am. I'm a social butterfly at parties. I will talk to anybody and everyone who comes into my orbit or I come into theirs. Nobody's off limits.
Well, that sounds like a strength.
That's real.
It is. It is. Now, it definitely drains the battery for
Oh,
sure.
yeah, I'm sure.
But
It's hard for about a week afterwards.
but yeah, no, it's always been I just don't really get the invites. So
Well, you got the last one, so I'm pretty sure you'll probably get the next one. Yeah.
I'll say this because I understand this not getting the invites thing. Don't be egregious about it, but every once in a while, invite yourself in a very diplomatic way. Just remind people that you exist. Ask very politely, hey, there's a party going on. I didn't get invited. I'd love to be there. Be real coy about it. Be real nice about it, but you have to alert people to your existence, right?
yeah,
Now, people will be a lot more alerted to your existence by how, like, you got to put out the goods. I mean, there's no way around that. Like, you're only as good as your last performance. You have to do something that gets people's attention, and that gives you something to point to.
yeah.
You know? There's no shame in kind of, quote unquote, inviting yourself. Just don't be a weirdo dick about it. This is how it works. This is how new people are inundated into the industry. This is part of shaking hands and getting to put yourself in a position where you can network. Don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel weird about it. This is your job. And this is like what the industry, this is what this is. You have to play the game.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. You have to fake it. Fucking fake it, man. Fucking fake it.
Fake it, see it, make it.
Send a fucking DM. But like maybe once every 3 months, once every 6 months. If there's something that you want to be a part of, make your presence known.
That was actually something that hanging out with some friends that I've made here that they kind of told me is, I looked at it through the lens of I'm a nobody performer. I am not going to direct message someone in charge of running the studio. I always felt like that wasn't my place. If they want me, they'll ask me. And that's completely backwards.
It's a fair assessment. It's a fair assessment, but it's not the way things actually work. And you're right.
I didn't know it was perfectly okay to just send them a message and say, hey, want to shoot me?
You can, because here's the thing. And folks that are watching this, folks that are listening, nobody gives a shit about your internal monologue or where you think you are at. Nobody's paying attention to you. You have to make yourself known. Just don't be a dick about it. That's all.
Yep.
That's all. That's all it takes.
You just got to be aware enough to know you have the goods that they want, and then say, "Hey, come and get these fucking goods. Let me bring these goods to you."
Yeah. I've, as I kind of mentioned a little bit, I moved here and I had some health complications hit me. I mean, just bad luck, like right when I got here and got settled. And I'm finally, a year later, kind of coming out on the tail end of that. So I've just kind of been waiting for my final appointment to, kind of release me to the world.
Girl, I know how that is. I'm going through the same thing. Been going through it for like 5 years.
It's, admittedly, I've kind of gone into my little hermit shell because of it. I've gotten very down and stuff like that because everything that goes with that. But yeah, I am coming back out of it. Luckily in this time, while I may have been down, I have gotten fortunate enough to meet some pretty cool people. And, I look at that as a gain. I may have not been performing the most, but at least I still was doing things.
Right.
Still active.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from my recollection, you're about 6 years in the industry writ large, right?
Yeah, I think, if you want to count being in the industry as monetization forward, 2018 is when I started.
Well, here's what I have to tell you. From somebody that's been 17 years in this industry, that 6-year mark, that 8-year mark, that 9-year mark, however long you plan on going, all you're experiencing right now is just the peaks and valleys. Mm-hmm. You stay the course, you put your nose to the grindstone. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs, but so long as you stick with it, you'll come out solid on the other side. It's like today isn't the end of the world.
There's a song that I really really love because it's just the message in it is so good, and the chorus is, "It's not a bad life, it's just a bad day."
Exactly.
And that really gets me through sometimes. Just kind of taking a step back with that perspective. I think I emotionally and personally have grown a lot in this year. I've had a lot of growing to do. Full disclosure, this is my first year ever living on my own, like 100%,
Big step.
And there's a lot of learning curves that come with your first living experience out that I just would have never expected. So yeah, it's been a fun year. It's been a great year, and honestly, I love living in Vegas. I really want to stay as long as I can.
I'm envious of you. You're living through moments right now that I used to have when, what are you, 26? What are you?
You're so sweet.
What are you?
I'm 32.
Okay, even 32. Fucking even 32. I look back at 32, and figuring out, just being like naive and even having a lot of years of doing this under my belt. Like, I look back at 32 and there's a sense of, I wish I could have lived more in the moment because those were really good days. And they feel like bad days, but they're not bad days. They're good days. What you're going through right now are actually like, that's your story. That's the legend you're building. And I know the hard parts of it feel really shitty, but I guarantee you 5 years, 8 years, 10 years from now, you're going to look back on what you're going through right now and you go, God damn it. God damn it. Oh, those were the days.
I mean, I already do that.
Yeah.
I think about, like where all of this started for me back when I was doing Patreon in Virginia, that's where I lived with my ex. It was our first apartment together, and I was like, man, those were some really, really fun, really good days. There were some bad ones for sure, and one thing that I've really gotten much better about now is doing kind of what you mentioned, is intentionally being in the moment. One of my favorite things to do extracurricularly is I love hiking. I love going out hiking, but more importantly, I like going to hike places where my phone signal is dead. I have no signal. Basically turn the phone off and just everything's quiet.
Have you been out to Mount Charleston?
I haven't been hiking, but I've driven through there.
You did the loop.
Yeah, we did the loop.
Isn't it beautiful?
Oh,
isn't it gorgeous?
Gorgeous.
We are coming up. We got about 5 minutes left. I'd love to hear what your opinion is about 3 pieces of advice that you give to up and comers from your perspective.
Your social media presence is everything. And it's something I actually personally struggle with, is I'm not a social media person. Making sure you're staying relevant, posting constantly. Even if you think nobody's looking, somebody's looking. It's amazing how many girls that just don't. I mean, I had a friend the other day. She messaged me. I was like, hey, how do I get in? And I was like, well, do you have a Twitter? No. That's the first thing they're going to ask me for if I try to recommend somebody, is what's their Twitter? What's
Right.
their Instagram? So, I mean, I know they may seem obvious, but a lot of girls kind of neglect that.
It's a presentation of you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, luckily getting into the industry now, I feel, is a little easier than it used to be. It's a lot easier to get seen, but at the same time, it's also a lot easier to get washed over by the sea of new and upcomers.
Well, the bar for entry is essentially low, and that's because in a way we do have the means of production to our avail. We have the OnlyFans, we have the ManyVids, and on and on and on.
A lot of power is in the
So you can be an independent performer, and then you rest on your own laurels. It's like
I
you
think
bear the weight of your like experience and ability and merit.
Yeah, I think that's where it goes is you need to be willing to self-produce yourself, get that content out there, get that kind of content out there because like we mentioned, these companies, if they are interested, that's what they're going to go look at what you're doing or what you've done. And then, not being afraid to, if they comment on, if they post something that says, hey, looking for models, got anyone in mind? Throw your name out there. There's no harm in it, If nothing else, it may get somebody to click your profile that might not be from that company, but they might know somebody from another company. Not being afraid to put yourself out there and also not being, if you have the ability, and I know it's hard, but if you can make a Vegas trip, companies, it's much more enticing to them to shoot a newcomer as long as they know you and you've made yourself known. They're much more willing to shoot with you just because you're here.
Right. Go again, I'm going to say this as an old person that knows stuff from all manner of entertainment. Whether you're an actor, you're a musician, you're a porn performer, whatever it is, you got to go where the heat is. Mm-hmm. You got to. There's no way around it. There's nobody that is so awesome that they can't escape being where the industry is.
Exactly.
Go where the industry is. And if it's not for you to make that kind of move, it doesn't mean that you're not viable. It just means you're not ready yet. But anybody that wants to be a part of the industry, we call it an industry for a reason. You got to be where the industry is.
Yeah, make a weekend trip. Try to make regular weekend trips if that's in your ability to do so,
There's no wrong way
because if you're here, you're going to meet
successful.
People. Exactly. If you're here, you're going to meet people. You're going to go out to those clubs and you're going to meet those people like we mentioned, the networking, and I don't know of another better way to be seen.
I'd say before you visit those hubs, do your due diligence and try to hit people up in those hubs and try to set something up ahead of time. So you're not just going out with the expectation of meeting people, but you've already contacted and talked to people and they're already expecting you to show up.
Yeah.
I love this. One last thing, and we got about a minute. What's the third piece of advice that you'd give?
Don't be afraid of your audience.
Please expand on that.
Something that's happened to me and something I have started to kind of be like, this is me, this is my content, you're enjoying it. I got into a very niche, very specific style of content to the point where if I did anything else, if I branched out, if I just made a different look, like my hair, my fans would tell me about it. I would get those type of content, those comments of, oh, you used to be so pretty with the old hair, or oh, you used to look so good when you did this, or, number one, don't let those kind of comments get to you. You have to have really thick skin to be in this business. Really, really thick skin. And don't be afraid of, as long as you love the way you look and what you're doing, those fans that hate it and may have loved you the day before, they're just going to be replaced by new fans that do love your new look and do love what you're doing.
There's a sucker born every minute.
Yeah.
With a new credit card.
I love that. You're absolutely correct. And Jeezy flips. God, the time has just flown by. Unfortunately, we literally have to shut it down before all the fucking cameras go haywire. Everybody look at the cameras and say goodbye to the audience.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, you go. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Approximate Podcast. And folks that are watching, thank you so much for watching. And we love you so much. We will see you all on the next episode of the Approximate Podcast. All right, bye.
Bye.